Country lanes and fishing poles and teddy bears are fun, and helping people cross the street and sitting in the sun, holding hands and ice-cold milk and learning how to cook. There's good in darn near everything if you've a mind to look. 'Cause it's all just a matter of your attitude. The way you look at things can pick you up or pull you down. So throw away the crappies, grab a handful of happies. Look at all the good things all around. Now you might have a toothache up above and underneath. And it may hurt, but stop and think about the guy who's got no teeth. And when you're all upset because your shoes are worn down to the street, just count your toes and think about those who've got no feet. Yeah, it's all just a matter of your attitude. The way you look at things can pick you up or pull you down. So throw away the crappies, grab a handful of happies. Look at all the good things all around. You're driving on the highway and the traffic's getting slow. And you're getting tense and all ticked off 'cause you've an important place to go. Well, count to 10 and give a smile to everyone around. And then relax and smile inside. You'll get there safe and sound. 'Cause it's all just a matter of your attitude. The way you look at things can pick you up or pull you down. So throw away the crappies, grab a handful of happies. Look at all the good things all around. Most birds are nice, and so are frogs, and leaves and dogs and trees, and apples and spaghetti sauce, and butterflies and bees. Shout Merry Christmas, everyone, in August, March, or May, and say something fun to someone glum, and watch that make your day. 'Cause it's all just a matter of your attitude. The way you look at things can pick you up or pull you down. So throw away the crappies, grab a handful of happies. Look at all the good things all around. Throw away the crappies, grab a handful of happies. Look at all the good things all around.
Well, by the look of that old clock on the wall, I'd say it's about that time. Let's get started.
Murderers keep murdering, the churches keep a-burning, the rapists keep a-raping, and the tide ain't turning. Uncle Sam, for all your power, things get worse every hour. It seems to me your energy's are wasted, chasing my friends and me.
That's right, Uncle Sam. Leave us pot smokers alone. What's up, cannabis family, reefer revolutionaries? It is Sunday. It is 4:20 in California, and this is Cannabis Saves the World, the show where we fill up a bag.
Or take some oil.
We fill up a bag. We take some oil. We use an herbal vaporizer. We do whatever we can to activate our endocannabinoid system. And when we say we, of course, we mean myself and Coach Chela.
Hi everybody.
Donning her
brand new. Mama's got a brand new mask.
It's hard to smoke from a bag.
Yeah, especially without a gasket that keeps it closed.
They make those now. I've seen them.
For an air riser?
Oh, not for an air riser. Oh, no. I'm sure they have an off-market thing for an air riser.
Cool.
But
mask looks so cute, huh, guys? So cute. A local maker made this mask. I'm super stoked about it.
It's not the Corona. It's the Chronic.
We went to the airport this week.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, so we brought a friend to the airport in Las Vegas. And yeah, I suppose we could go without masks. But these are great new masks. Support your local makers. I love the masks. I think it's fun.
There's more fun masks in the airport.
Yes, the fun masks. Support your local makers.
That was at the Las Vegas McCarran Airport.
Yes.
A shot of four masked individuals and a dog. Mm-hmm. Although I'm blocking Jackpot's photo with our label. But he was so cute, he ended up looking at the camera, so that was good. And that was the only time we were right next to each other. Well, except in the car.
Well, yeah.
Except the entire time.
And those two on the end are going together.
Right.
And by the way, she did pick up her mask. The girl on the pink, went to the right area.
Right. She covered her nose.
Yeah, she covered her nose.
I think she was also. Oh, did she also have an M95 under that?
Well, Carolyn does. Yes, Carolyn does, and I'm sure they made adjustments. We gave her goggles and the whole 9 yards.
Do you want to recap our little journey?
It was awesome. I don't know what I really want to say about it other than it was terrific.
Well, if you tuned in last week, you knew we were going on a road trip.
That's right.
On Thursday to get a friend to the airport to get to Texas. Mm-hmm. And she is installed, happy.
Complaining about the food. It's
complaining
perfect.
about the food, so she's doing
perfect.
Great.
Yeah, so she's good. So we know she's all right.
And now, Chela and I get to pack up her house.
Yes.
And send it along. So that's it's part of, taking care of others, taking care of family and loved ones in this time, and the timing of all of this
wild stuff,
was all when it was, and I mean, we were even thinking of maybe moving too, I mean, it was
we're still thinking,
but it might have been happening the same time too. So anyway,
thank goodness it isn't.
And we are.
We have a doctor in the house. I just wish to say.
Do we?
Dr. Mike.
Who else do we have in the house? Lots of people jumping in.
Ugly Adams and Debbie D, of course, and MDN Niles.
Small tubes first in.
Jocelyn
always.
Russell.
Small tubes.
Nice to see you all.
Jason Tube 222. History
Gypsy Lady Lee. I'm so sorry. I was so excited.
History buffering is here. It's always great to see Gypsy Lady Lee. And Kathy, welcome. Hola, Kathy. Welcome to the show. 420 Fred, of course, along with Debbie. Or no, with, I'm sorry, that's with... I'm confused. I've got my YouTube couples mixed up.
Yes. Debbie D and
Ugly Adams.
That's
right.
are in the same house, I
That's
believe.
right.
Yes.
They don't have to social. We're all social distancing here on YouTube.
That's right.
So yes, that was our one of our adventures this week. It went very well. It went very well.
It was great.
It went very well.
It was great.
Jackpot was great.
I made snacks for the road. It was perfect.
The handoff was flawless.
Our friend was very happy.
We got to socially distance, meet with see our nieces who live in Vegas.
Yeah. We were hoping to connect with Vegan Metro, but that didn't work out.
Totally were, but yeah, it just got longer and.
Well, we needed to get back home.
And we needed to get
home. We needed to just turn right around and go home. We had a bite to eat and we left.
Rolled
by the nieces.
The timing just didn't work out. But we did get a little vegan food to go and enjoyed that. And we turned right around and came home and got back in town.
About an hour after she got to Texas.
Right.
After she got into bed, I mean.
So I've never done that before, but that was interesting. I mean, I've driven to Vegas before, but never for that kind of purpose.
Yeah,
but,
round trip.
But it was good. We well prepared, well organized.
Thank you, baby. Thank you. And I got to tell you guys, while the packing is daunting, do you have any handy pictures by any chance?
Oh, the packing?
Yeah, the packing is daunting. It's extremely satisfying. I've been helping this lady for quite a while. She's been a friend of my family since I was a teenager, so quite a while. But I've been actually helping her with stuff for about a year and a half. And I've been wanting to go through her cabinets and, clean out so that she could live, freer and with more ease at home, so she doesn't pick out the same stained pants every day and, same 3 pair of stained pants. She has so many clothes and all this stuff. So anyway, it's super satisfying now because now I actually get to do it.
All the packing going on.
All the packing.
It's quite. There's a lot of memories in that house.
Yeah.
And this, over the years, I've been there a long time. A lot of memories build up. I know my grandmother passed. The house was packed. It's a law of physics. The stuff expands to the space allowed. So no matter where you live, you're going to fill it up. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's our consumer nature or whatever it is, but for some reason we got to have stuff in case we need it. Just in case. You never know. You never know when you're going to need this.
Well, especially people of her generation,
right?
They don't want to be wasteful. And I would say our generation as well, since we're, approaching a recession, a depression, worse than the depression. You don't want to get rid of stuff, but also you don't want to hoard. When I do projects like this, because this is not the first lady I've helped in this regard.
No, this is, I think we were counting the number of people we've helped move.
Yeah, it's a few. But it definitely reminds me that I want to stay lean and keep things light.
So Jason Tube 22, to answer your question, we are blowing on some Harley Sue. I have some 1-to-1 nice balanced CBD to THC Harley Sue flower. One of the stories in the news this week is we're going to talk about how this whole CBD thing came up, and of course CBD in the news with regards to COVID again this week. We of course brought you the story back on May 3rd, Chela. It was when
May 3rd.
I did our first live broadcast back in the game. But the story about the research going on in Canada and Israel with regards to CBD, high doses of CBD, and possibly being able to help be another tool in this toolbox, if you will, against coronavirus.
Cannabis is medicine.
Cannabis is medicine, and does have some of the properties that are needed in dealing and fighting this COVID challenge. Which is good news for cannabis because cannabis saves the world, as you know from the name of our channel and our show, as well as our podcast, Cannabis Helps Dementia. We have a new episode to bring you this week, guys. A really amazing episode of the podcast, Cannabis Helps Dementia. You can find that on all of the podcast servers, including Chela. Did we do our $100 million deal for Spotify yet?
Not yet.
But we are on Spotify.
Not yet.
We haven't done our $100 million Joe Rogan deal.
Maybe when we have a few more listeners.
Maybe when we get a few more listeners. So share the podcast on Spotify, on Apple. We're on Apple, which, for better or worse, we're up on Apple Podcasts.
Same with iHeartRadio.
iHeartRadio. It's fantastic.
Better or
we're
worse.
up there. Right? But we're getting, I just submitted it somewhere else too. And they're like, oh, you're already indexed. So wherever you listen to podcasts, just type in Cannabis Helps Dementia. And if it might be there. And if it's not, let us know. We will certainly submit it. But we're on Spotify. We're on Apple iTunes. We're on Anchor FM / Cannabis Helps Dementia. You can go there and find a bunch of places that you can get directly to at anchor.fm / Cannabis Helps Dementia, where you can also leave a message right there. You can leave us a voice message, which is super cool. And we might even include it if you've got a story to tell about how cannabis helps dementia or how much you like the show. We'll include it in the podcast. So you can leave us a message there. You can also support the show there if you wanted to for as little as 99 cents a month. There's a little support button. You can all do through anchor.fm / Cannabis Helps Dementia. Great little site. Great little, it conveniently came up on our radar and available to us when we wanted to start the podcast. So that's where we're launching from. And you can find all the places from there, as well as cannabishelpsdementia.com. You can find we'll be updating more of that page as we move along in this adventure. Once we're done with our moving adventure, we will continue to update the website. But really what you do is want you to go out and listen to the podcast, share the podcast, rate and review it on wherever you listen, and try to get us buzzing about this very important information and education about cannabis medicine and in the population that are of people living with dementia, which is a underserved community, to say the least, by even big pharma.
And it's mostly women
and
people of color.
Right. Well,
disproportionately impacted.
There you go. that says a lot. So please spread the word on whatever podcast application or service you use, and check it out. We're going to play this latest episode coming up, and then we're going to get into some of the news. And that news, you can follow me over at DC420LA on Twitter, at DC420LA. You can follow the podcast at Cannabis Helps on Twitter. On Instagram, it's Cannabis Helps Dementia. And on Facebook, it's CHD Podcast, because Facebook won't let you put in the word cannabis in your username. Strange. But that's the way it is, folks. So those are the ways you can follow us on all the socials. You can connect with us there, contact us there, tell us your story. Because as you will find out this week, not all dementia patients, cannabis may not be good for them all. And we get some enlightenment on that part this week on the podcast. So, Chela, before we get into it, anything you would like to say about this week's podcast and how it came about? Or
yeah, sure, I'd love to. So we got introduced to the nice people at Primrose through other nice people, through Dr. Hergenrather and Dr. Grobe. They first put Primrose on our radar. At first we didn't even know the name, but they just said there was this place, and it was this mythical place. And we're like, oh, this place. And then we learned the name. And then I started calling the executive director, and I called him a few times. And I sent a couple emails. And I caught him once. He was answering the phones at the receptionist area, so he actually answered my call, but, he was at the front desk, so I couldn't exactly talk to him. I definitely got the impression that he was not super interested in talking to media about what they do there. Put a pin in it, set it off to the side, continued on with our life, met Teepa Snow at one of her wonderful gatherings, which now I don't know. But we went there, and at that event, Primrose and the executive director, John, who you guys are going to meet in a minute here, was there. So I got to meet John and his wife, and I had my research book. And I think seeing him and meeting him in person made him...
Open the door.
interested in possibly talking to us more about what they do there. So he was willing, and I'm super duper stoked. So there you go.
Well, we're gonna get right into it. It's a long one because it actually is 2 interviews, 2 amazing interviews. One with John and one with Dan, the head nurse and head of wellness director, and basically coordinates all the medicine with the doctors and the local community and all of the different departments, and he tells us all about it. So that's we're going to get into that. Before I do, Chela, I do want to say hello to German Military Toys over on Periscope.
Awesome.
Watching on Periscope. Welcome to the show. He has a question. Perhaps you might know. What strain is good for menopause and female problems? I'm asking for my wife.
Don't tell her you asked. So
I'd say any of them good for you.
For me.
No, for me. I mean for him.
Oh, for him, yes. For the spouse. Yes. Very good. Very good.
But specifically.
I found that a indica dominant product. I've been using cheese. I like cheese, full extraction cannabis oil. For me, it's
cheese
been,
is the strain. Yeah.
Yeah, strain name. Or Skywalker. But also just anything that's THC dominant with CBD in it. Something wrong?
I was just looking at your post-it on the front.
Oh.
I was reading it.
With CBD in it. I have to do my classes tonight.
Yeah, no, I see that. That's what
So, so for menopause and menopausal symptoms, also make sure that we're getting enough vitamin D and lots of exercise and connecting with nature and meditation and yoga and eating well and not drinking alcohol and not eating sugar, all extremely important. I don't know that any cannabis can do it alone.
Well, certainly what we're going to find out in this podcast is that cannabis seems to be an excellent base, an excellent floor, an excellent foundation for if you have to have a polypharmacy sort of solution to your ailment. You can use far less of the pharmaceuticals if you have cannabis as your baseline, as a whole plant cannabis, product in an oil or an edible or something like that.
Also in the news later, we're going to talk about 2 other elder care facilities that are successfully using cannabis medicine in their facilities as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about that story. It was a story by a friend of the show, Abby Rosner. Within the last few weeks, wrote about these 2 facilities.
Yeah.
And that'll be the first news story that we pick up on the other side of the podcast.
Super.
So welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you for cheese. MDM Nile says yes. For my sister who might be watching on Facebook, no, it's not actual cheese. That's just the name of a strain.
Sister.
Or your sister, yeah, or your sister. Both the sisters are watching, which is totally exciting.
I'm not sure because my sister keeps texting me also, so I'm not really sure what's happening.
And I'm doing a watch party over on my Facebook page. So any of my Facebook friends that are watching, welcome to the show, guys. This is what we do on the weekends. Yeah. And please check out our podcast on whatever podcast server you use. And so without further ado, let's get into this week's podcast. This week's episode number 6 of Cannabis Helps Dementia, featuring Primrose, engaged living for Alzheimer's and dementia.
In Santa Rosa, California.
Using cannabis medicine since 2008.
Get up and get out. Get rid of that frown that's been dragging you down and get up in the air. Just pretend that you can fly. You'll never know if you can till you try.
Hi, and welcome to Cannabis Helps Dementia. I'm Chela.
I'm Dave. And right up front, we'd like to say that we're not doctors or medical professionals, and nothing you hear in this podcast should be considered medical advice.
Right.
We're not experts, but throughout this podcast series, you'll hear from doctors, nurses, research scientists, administrators, other caregivers, and people living with dementia about how cannabis helps.
Like it did for our family.
That's right.
After my mom was diagnosed with dementia, we were thrust into family caregiving and became fierce advocates for people living with dementia.
Especially access to cannabis medicine.
In this episode, we learn about Primrose, the premier assisted living facility in Northern California that's been quietly using cannabis therapeutics for people living with dementia since 2008.
In their first ever media interview, we chat with the owner and executive director of Primrose, as well as their wellness director, about why and how this assisted living facility has been able to integrate cannabis medicine into their community and the measurable benefits cannabis gives to people living with dementia.
John Wotring is owner and executive director of Primrose Engaged Living for Alzheimer's and Dementia in Santa Rosa, California.
They've been supporting people living with dementia since 1997 and making cannabis medicine available for residents after an enlightened hospice nurse made the suggestion in 2008.
Primrose, unlike other assisted living facilities, is local and family-owned, focusing exclusively on adults who have memory loss, including Alzheimer's disease and related dementias.
This place is exceptional because it was originally created to fill their own family's need. They've been going the extra mile for their own since day one.
Family caregivers will. We sat down with John while visiting Primrose's 3-acre grounds, and he tells us how cannabis medicine allows people living with dementia to feel better, function longer, stay safer, and that they're far happier than when they're on black box drugs that they're typically prescribed.
And that one of their greatest success stories was a former police officer who had remarked that he would have to cuff himself after getting his meds.
The remarkable clarity in dementia. Without further ado, let's get into our time at Primrose. Awesome, John. Thank you so much. And Dan, thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Well, it's an honor to have you.
Tell us a little bit about the grounds here. This is amazing.
Well, we have about 3.5 acres of grounds for residents to enjoy. It is kind of a park-like setting where we have vegetable gardens, herb gardens, playgrounds, dogs that wander, free-range chickens that wander, all for kind of the enjoyment of our residents.
Beautiful. I love it.
Free-range chickens, residents, dogs.
So you can just walk around.
Pick the flowers, eat them, whatever. What she has is a non-contained semblance of freedom that you won't have in any other assisted living facility because they won't take the risk of having them be outside.
Yeah.
The reality is, if I have 2.5 to 5 years left of my life and I have a terminal diagnosis of any form of dementia, Alzheimer's particularly, and if I want to go for a walk, I should be able to go for a walk. That's my philosophy of care. And so we set up an environment to facilitate that. They may fall. They may even have a catastrophic injury. But they are definitely going to live free. As free as possible.
I love that.
Yeah.
Live free.
Which is why we need the 3.5 acres to do a really good job of dementia care. Because they need to be able to have some freedom.
Yeah. You got to have some freedom.
In my dad's facilities he ran and owned when I was younger, the most horrific thing was those ones that I want to go out, I want to go out, I want to go out. And I asked him one day, I said, why can't they go out? Because regulations don't provide for it. It's not safe, only with somebody.
Right.
These people wanted to go outside and go for a walk. They wanted some sunshine to smell the fresh air.
Yeah.
Wasn't in their stars. So when we created Primrose, I'm like, yeah, no, we're not creating that environment again.
Yeah.
We're going to do it different. And then I'll do it with you.
Yeah.
So this was a fabrication of all the things I didn't like about our medical industry, of taking care of the elderly. I didn't want to warehouse them.
Right. Right. And Primrose was started to help your family, right?
My grandfather had strokes and had dementia, much like anybody else with Alzheimer's does, very similar in symptoms. But he didn't have the fortunate ability to live in a state where this type of environment was allowed. He lived back in Indiana, and there was 2 choices for him. Home with in-home caregivers that they fired as fast as they got him into the house because strangers in the house was tough for them to manage. Yeah. Or there was skilled nursing They would take care of him on a hospital setting, inpatient hospital setting, which he didn't need. So the brainchild of Primrose was about taking care of people in a better way, having that in-between industry, being assisted living, specializing in Alzheimer's, was a way to take care of my grandfather better than he could be cared for at home and better than he could be cared for in a skilled nursing setting. It turns out my grandma never let us care for him.
Oh.
She made him a blood oath promise never to place him in a facility ever. And she never did. When he passed at home, probably earlier because he didn't get the quality care that he probably deserved, my grandmother was confused. We thought it was depression. We knew that it was more than that when we found her dining room table and it was stacks of checks, stacks of bills, newspapers that she had collected. And she asked me, she goes, John, I have all these things. What do I do with them? I went, uh-oh.
Yeah.
This is more than just depression-induced dementia.
Yeah.
She has something else going on. So we took her to a neurologist and had her diagnosed with what she called the big A, Alzheimer's, which is horrifying to her. She wouldn't admit at the time that the medications that they prescribed to enhance her memory, she wouldn't call them by name. She wouldn't say what they were for. They're just her memory vitamins. Her memory vitamins. She ended up living at Primrose for 8 years in our Primrose, Sacramento location. So while we missed the opportunity to care for my grandfather, even though we built the company for him, we had the opportunity to care for my grandmother for 8 years.
Wow.
And it's closer to her than I ever thought I would be.
Wow.
Which is a blessing and a curse, to be honest. It was kind of strange to have my staff see my baby pictures because she had them in the room, or to see when I was a teenager and had a mohawk and an earring. They're like, whoa. That was a little bit awkward.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I trained the staff, take care of him like it's your grandma because it's mine.
Right.
And they did. They did a wonderful job with her.
Awesome. How did Primrose start to use cannabis medicine?
I'm biased towards the use of cannabis for what it could do to help people who are suffering to some degree. My uncle, Bill, had AIDS. He was an early case of it. And in the late 1980s, he moved in with us and lived with us because he could no longer run his business and support himself. Most of his money went to his treatments, which largely proved to be ineffective. Ultimately, he died at our house in the early 90s. Had great care along the way. But part of that great care was marijuana. He had a doctor that was progressive at the time. He lived out in Guerneville, and the doctor had prescribed medical cannabis to him to take away some of the aches, some of the pains, and some of the symptoms associated with AIDS. When he would smoke his marijuana, a lot of his aches and pains and frustration with his situation went away. He could enjoy life again for a little while. It provided him a great escape at times. Sometimes it was just a great relief. And sometimes the relief was the escape. So while he had a very difficult road in fighting the AIDS battle, it was made a lot better with the use of medical cannabis, long before we started Primrose. We had a nurse at Primrose, and we hired her in the fall of 2007. She had worked in hospice care in the same West County of Sonoma County for many years, and had seen good results with the people out there that had self-medicated with medicinal marijuana, primarily for AIDS. And her belief was that the seniors in our environment are suffering just as much, but in a different way, and could also benefit. Our nurse, Laura Schultz, was an LVN and had that hospice experience. With that experience she had with medical cannabis, again, she felt that our residents here could benefit from it. So she approached me in January of 2008 and said, hey, we should do a medical cannabis program here at Primrose. And it wasn't allowed at that time regulatorily. The state of California's Department of Social Services hadn't had a position on it yet. It was too new.
New? It was medically legal since 1996.
True, and had been around for thousands of years.
But
however,
96 legal.
Yeah, however, new to using it for seniors that had dementia. And the Department of Social Services regulates people of need, kids, adults, and seniors that all have some sort of disability. And in that realm, it just wasn't used. The fact was, hospice-wise, it had caught on and was being used in hospice care, just not long-term for seniors. So we first started the program with edibles. We consulted with Dr. Grobe. Dr. Grobe's local psychiatrist, and a very, very good one. I've constantly been impressed with his abilities. And one of his suggestions for some of our residents was the use of medical cannabis. His delivery system that was preferred at the time, we couldn't do in our environment because it was really hard to quantitatively tell how much benefit they're going to get of the THC and cannabinoids. But he believed that the synthetic versions, like Marinol, that are made in the lab, were ineffective because they weren't the complete plant. Yeah. And he made a really good case, to me, that there's a lot of benefits to using a complete plant. Mm-hmm. And our first subject we used was somebody who had been on Marinol, and the family and the resident found it to be ineffective, completely ineffective. But when she tried the complete plant in the form of an edible, much like she was taking her Marinol, she found that she had a better quality of life. And that's what Primrose is about, is providing a better quality of life.
Was it a complete plant balanced CBD THC, or was it mostly THC with?
It was a complete balance. Okay. It was 50-50 mix, as close as they could get. And they would bake it into cookies, or they would bake it into chocolate, which was preferred, because who doesn't like a good chocolate bar? Right. It was a little bit of a challenge because the environment we have they don't want us to determine the amount of medication that's needed. Dr. Grobe provided us great assistance of saying, okay, you'll give X amount of weight of a particular chocolate bar. So he prescribed, for example, there's a chocolate bar called the 5150. And he would say, you're going to have, 1 ounce of this chocolate bar 3 times a day for quality of life, or for dementia-induced agitation. And he would give a standing order for this chocolate bar. And the families at that time would purchase the product and deliver it to us. We had to purchase a gram scale because we had no way to really weigh it. I went to the local pawn shop and said, I'm interested in buying a gram scale. And the first thing they said with my short haircut, are you a cop?
Of course.
And I said, absolutely not. I'm not a police officer. And as I explained that it's to benefit seniors and to help them with their medicinal marijuana, he then took me around back and showed me his whole wall of gram scales. And I bought the very nicest one he had. It was digital and hyper accurate. Yes. And he understood that I was doing with it as its intended use to measure and weigh medicine. Yeah. So at that time we got more scientific about it because we weren't just giving a whole cookie or a whole candy bar. We were giving exactly what the doctor wanted. And we could measure the results. So if that resident had that 1 ounce of chocolate bar 3 times a day, we could look at what the effects were, and we could adjust it up or adjust it down, or adjust more THC or less THC. We could make those adjustments what we felt would improve that resident's quality of life.
What was the difference between before cannabis medicine to after cannabis medicine?
We saw a greater reliance on black box warning medications. They have in the psychiatric industry, as well as the old Alzheimer's industry, something they called vitamin H. It's known from the pharmacy realm as Haldol, Risperidol, Seroquel. They use Depakote, which is an anticonvulsant, but they use it for its off-label use of sedation. All those things were used to help somebody with agitation problems before cannabis. With all of those medications, there is terrible side effects. Everything from tardive dyskinesia, shuffling of the feet, tongue thrusts. They had a flattened affect. They had a lot of problems that were very, very dangerous and overall reduced the quality of life and the quantity of life that our residents had. And one of the biggest ways they did that is they created fall risks. More residents fell using those black box warning drugs as they were hard to find the balance of what was therapeutic that didn't make them a fall risk. They fell suffering catastrophic injuries, hip fractures, arms, shoulders, and sometimes they never did recover from those. It ultimately led to their death. When we introduced medical marijuana, we used it in a way with the edibles to reduce the reliance on the psychoactive pharmacy-produced medications that had those terrible side effects. And what we found with medical marijuana is we had less of a side effect profile. They didn't have the same fall risk, yet they were just as calm. They didn't have the same weight loss problems. They ate better. They had less behaviors because it took away a lot of their aches and pains. They felt better. They had that uncontrollable urge to smile. And that was how we measured quality of life. They could function longer, safer, and happier on the medical cannabis versus those black box warning drugs. So how we did it, as we added those on, the medical cannabis onto their regime, we peeled back each of the medications we could possibly get rid of. We have at Perlmutter what's called the Behavior Management Committee. And it looks at the most difficult residents, and it looks at what medications can we get rid of. Yes. The medical community is really apt at finding a symptom and providing a medication for that symptom. It's not really apt at eliminating medications. The committee, the function was to evaluate behaviors, to include the consultation from our MSW, from our social worker, from our nurse, from our consulting physicians, and say, gee, what is safe to get rid of? What is advantageous to the resident? We would come up with a recommendation, and as lay people doing dementia care and dealing with medications, we would have our consulting physicians write a letter to that person's primary care physician and make the recommendation. Not all primary care physicians were on board with medical cannabis. To be honest, in the early start in 2008, a lot of families weren't on board with medical cannabis. But one of our most difficult cases was a former police officer who dedicated his life to arresting people that broke the law. A lot of those people were people who utilized medications and or drugs. He was one of our biggest success stories because there was no other medication that would provide him the quality of life that he needed except medical cannabis.
Did he know he was using cannabis?
He did.
Wow.
He would laugh, he would joke, and he would swear about it. But in the end, he knew, hey, this is my happy chocolate. This works for me.
Did he ever make the connection that this used to be an illegal substance and now it's helping me?
Every day.
Did he?
Every day he says, well, I guess I'm going to have to cuff myself.
Wow.
However, his family was reluctant to allow us to use it. He was reluctant to use it. But when everything else failed to provide him a good quality of life, he said, well, what can it hurt? And he was amazed at the results.
Desperation.
Desperation. Not all of our residents got that far, but that was early on when families were reluctant and physicians were reluctant. Desperation was the key. The necessity was the key. Now it's become more of a choice for quality of life, not because nothing else will work, but because it's a better alternative, because less of a side effect profile, no tardive dyskinesia, less of a fall risk, happier, no weight loss.
It's amazing to me that this is even a thing, because in Southern California, it's still a problem. Even, really fancy, independent, top dollar places are like, oh no, we don't do cannabis medicine here. Oh no. There are a few that are open to CBD.
late in 2008, the Department of Social Services approached all facilities in the state of California and said that we had to have a position. It was our choice to allow medical cannabis in our buildings. And if so, what form? Will it be smoked? Will it be edibles? Will it be tinctures? Will it be candies? And what policies we had all had to be in writing and all had to be established. And because we had already started our medical cannabis program, our policy was clear. We would treat it like any other medication in order to usurp the negative effects of all the other medications. So it was an easy choice for us. I didn't feel comfortable with the residents smoking it, but primarily because Dr. Grobe's guidance is to being able to measure the results. Even though smoking it may have provided them a great relief, there was another way to get it into their system, the complete plant, and get the complete benefit without the risks of an ignition source. Always tricky with dementia.
So you've had a protocol, so you've had something in place since before it was needed to have something in place. I'm hearing from you that all assisted livings had this opportunity to make a stand, one way or the other.
All had the opportunity. However, some have dire consequences should they not choose correctly. The regulations federally, medicinal marijuana is not allowed. So if a facility is owned by a chain, a large chain that is interstate, if they have facilities, say, in Nevada and in Arizona or in Texas, Tennessee, and also California, they're engaged in a significant amount of interstate commerce, in which case federal law applies to those facilities in a greater aspect than it does a facility that's based solely in California. So the chains that had multiple facilities in multiple states had a greater dilemma because they fall under more federal jurisdiction than a in-state facility like Primrose. So smaller facilities, it was easier for us and less of a risk legally to start a program. Because Primrose was just in California, we jumped at the opportunity because we could manage the risk.
How do we find a list of all the places that have a medical cannabis program?
You cannot. The list does not exist.
Why not?
It is word of mouth only.
That's crazy.
I do know there are a handful of facilities in Sonoma County, in our little county, that provide them. There's 177 assisted living facilities in Sonoma County today. Of those, I can count on one hand how many have a medical cannabis program.
And we're in the heart of it here.
And we're in the heart of it here. There is still risk. This is my first interview or public statement about it because of those risks.
Wow. I'm honored. Thank you so much.
Won't be my last.
Yeah.
But it's my first.
First of many.
I didn't want Primrose to be landmarked as here's where the medical cannabis is. If you want to go arrest somebody for pushing the limits, go arrest them. I wanted to be able to provide the benefit, but not necessarily want the attention for it. But we did it because the resident needs it, so we took the risk.
Teepa Snow says that it takes 25 years for the medical community to adopt a new idea into the mainstream. And judging from what you're telling me, in California, it was legal in '96. You guys started using it on the Vanguard in 2008.
Yep.
And are now just sort of talking about it publicly in 2019.
Yes.
So that timeline sort of
fits. There's a saying in the regulatory environment, whether it be Department of Health Services for skilled nursing facilities nationally, or the Department of Social Services within the state of California, changing regulation and changing paradigms is like changing directions for the Titanic. Slow to change, difficult to do, requires a lot of effort. As you well are aware, you're part of that effort. Again, our focus is more resident-based. It's not how the medical cannabis is gotten isn't our chief concern, but more how it's delivered and what the effects are. I would be an ostrich with my head in the sand if I didn't consider the regulatory environment that affects medical cannabis. I know that a lot of the regulations that have recently gone into effect have greatly limited what we're able to do historically with edibles. It's just not possible anymore. We can't put the same contents in the edibles. And we've had to switch modalities and modes of administration for our residents.
What do you primarily do as administration?
Right now, we primarily use pill form.
Oh, really?
So we found a local purveyor of medical cannabis who has pills.
Like a gel cap?
It's a gel cap. It's what the state wants to see because it's what's known in the traditions of administering medications. Looks like a medication, works like a medication. Well, gosh, we treat it like a medication. It must be a medication.
Right.
They weren't as comfortable with us with cookies and brownies and chocolate, even though it was equally as effective and more, I'll say, eagerly consumed.
Right.
And we would tell them, this chocolate is your medicine. Your medicine's in this chocolate. They didn't care. They ate the chocolate anyway. One, because the chocolate was good. Two, because it gave them a quality of life.
My mom had trouble swallowing pills. Do you guys have trouble administering pills? Or do you smash it up somehow? Or?
We don't at this time, not to saying that we couldn't if we needed to, and that's one of the benefits of the gel caps. To squish any medications, whether it be a pill into a powdered form or a gel cap, opening it requires physician approval in our environment. Regulatorily, they don't want us altering medications, which is why the gram scale and the chocolate and the weighing it. So many pesky rules.
Yeah.
The pesky rules, while well-intentioned, do inhibit our ability to provide quality care. Remember, the road to hell is paved with those good intentions.
True story.
The more regulations that are passed, the more restrictive our environments are. I love the regulations and the rules that repeal other rules. The one that you're talking about, the Senate Appropriations Committee, of foregoing tax, foregoing an income to the state in order to provide a service to the community, I think is a great step. I like those kind of Senate bills. The ones that restrict what we could do for our residents limits creativity. It limits quality of life for seniors, and they're deserving of it. So.
It ignores the catastrophe tsunami that Alzheimer's is.
Yes. Agreed. Right now in the U.S., I think there's 5.5 million people with Alzheimer's that are known. There's a lot that are undiagnosed because grandma won't go to the doctor because they're going to tell me what I don't want to hear.
That's right.
The issue that I have and the concern I have is the baby boomers, born between 1941, I think it's 1964. There's more of them than any other group of population coming. They're also going to have a higher Alzheimer's rate on a per capita basis. There's not enough caregivers, beds, and facilities for us to care for them.
I love that John's family created Primrose, and I really love his live-free philosophy of care, a non-contained semblance of freedom. Everyone wants to be free.
When people are diagnosed with a life-changing illness, they often fear losing their freedom and independence most. Some would rather die.
I think every assisted living facility should be like Primrose. The people who work at Primrose bring their dogs to work regularly. The staff gets special training.
And Primrose supports and practices Teepa Snow's positive approach to care.
I love her. Teepa knows how much cannabis helps dementia, and so does Dan O'Brien, who's been the wellness director at Primrose for over 5 years. Dan is a registered nurse and coordinates all the nursing and medical aspects of resident care by working with all the Primrose departments and the medical community in Santa Rosa.
Dan gave us his thoughts on how cannabis medicine is benefiting all the residents who are currently using it, but that cannabis may not be right for every person living with dementia. Here's what Dan has to say about how cannabis helps dementia.
How long have you been working here at Primrose?
I am just a few weeks short of my 5th anniversary.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
In your previous work, did you work with people living with dementia?
No, this was the very beginning and the sum total of my work with this population.
Wow. Primrose is a very special place on so many levels, not the least of which is you guys regularly use cannabis medicine, not just CBD. Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience with that?
When I arrived at Primrose 5 years ago, there was already a substantial history of cannabis being used here, and the staff that I inherited was fully convinced of its efficacy. And we also had, at that time, one particular case of a person with significant behavioral complications who required actually a large amount and variety of medications, prescription medications. And I discovered that almost everything that she was getting was ineffective without the use of cannabis as a kind of like a floor to put under it all. We would give her a dose in the morning before everything else. And then, as I said, her physicians had her taking more medication than anybody else here in my experience. It was a very extreme case. And my experience was that on those days that the cannabis was not given or was refused by her, that the other medications barely worked at all. So that alone, it's only an anecdotal story, but basically everything that we're working on here is kind of based on just our history and our experience.
Well, there are no medications that are actually for the behavioral difficult symptoms that present with dementia
Well,
as prescribed.
a lot of the behavioral disturbances, is particularly the really serious ones, usually involve some degree of psychotic ideation or kind of a disassociation from reality. And there are medications for that. They're not in high favor in a lot of care environments. However, we have found that they are appropriate and useful here, and they seem to work much, much better in conjunction with cannabis.
You're talking about black box drugs,
Yes.
antipsychotics.
The dreaded antipsychotics, yes.
You're finding, what I'm hearing is that you're finding that they work better with cannabis.
I would have to say, on the whole, they are certainly more efficacious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had you worked with cannabis before you came here?
I don't think worked would be the proper term.
But you were familiar.
Oh, sure.
Okay. All right. So you were familiar, say, in an adult use situation, as opposed to, say, medically. Now, did it take some convincing for you to be convinced of its medical efficacy?
No. When I arrived here, I was absolutely a babe in the woods. And I took everything that everybody said at face value and then just proceeded to observe for myself. And there's no question in my mind that cannabis and its various formulations that we've used here has been quite effective. One factor that helped to convince me of that is that when I started here, the cannabis that we were using was in the form of edibles. And my staff told me that there were really only a couple of edible products that we should be using because they seemed to be the only ones that provided consistent results. Meaning probably that the formulation, the production was consistent.
Sure.
And I kind of rolled my eyes and thought about that. But there were times when the edible products that we asked the families to bring in were not available, and they would bring us something else. We would need to obtain a quick order from the doctor to use some different product. And I would find with a lot of those different products that sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't. And I put that down to kind of poor quality manufacture.
Sure.
The pieces all seem to fit together.
Has the consistency of manufacturing gotten better since Prop 64?
Well, before Prop 64 was enacted, we started, we standardized on one particular provider who was meeting a more medical standard than we were able to achieve using edible products. And that particular manufacturer produces medicine of really great purity and great consistency.
Awesome.
So can't really answer that question because we were doing that before Prop 64 came along. I can tell you that Prop 64 created mountains of complications for that person who makes our products because he's got a whole new regulatory framework he has to work around. Whereas before, in the days of legalized medical use only, my understanding is that it was a little more like the Wild West, and the governmental controls weren't so strict.
Yeah, there was no regulation before Prop 64.
So I've been told.
Yeah. I know you can't say like what dose is right for individual people, but what's the range of dose that most people are getting? Is it like 2.5 milligrams, 2 to 3 times a day, 10 milligrams, 2 to 3 times a day, 20?
Well, interestingly, particularly with the physicians that we work with, a typical starting dose was 5 milligrams of THC with 5 milligrams of CBD.
Once a day?
Not once a day, usually. Twice a day would probably be kind of the minimum dose.
Okay.
And it's very interesting that when the government started regulating things, that it all seemed to come in 5 milligram doses too. There were a few people in the beginning who got considerably higher doses that were available from edible products at the time that were extremely high potency. That person I mentioned at the beginning of this interview being a case. But for the most part, we keep it low and we go slow.
Good.
Another factor involved in that also is you need to keep in mind that our population is physically quite vulnerable.
Yeah.
They're older and they're frail and they already have a severe neurological condition. Consequently, we find that as time goes on and their physical state and their health tend to deteriorate, usually it's appropriate to drop the doses even lower. So we're always looking to reduce.
It's such a small amount, and it seems to make such a giant difference. I wonder why more facilities aren't using this medicine.
Well, we are an independent, privately owned facility, and most of our competitors, that is, facilities on the same scale as us or larger, are part of national corporations. And I wouldn't be surprised if they probably get Medicare money as well. So the federal government is doubly involved in what they're doing. And I won't go into too much detail, but I have a bias that I believe that a lot of these organizations are not they're not as focused on looking into every possibility of what might help somebody. They are more focused on maintaining their organization and keeping it running.
Right. How many people are here, and of the number of people here, how many are using cannabis medicine?
We are licensed for 50. Currently, we have 43 residents. And of those 43, right now, I believe I have 9 or 10.
9 or 10.
That's it.
Interesting.
But every one of them is benefiting from it, though.
Yeah. What is a reason why somebody wouldn't benefit from cannabis?
Well, it's divided into THC and CBD.
Okay.
THC induces confusion. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And there are times with people who have dementia, this may seem counterintuitive, when a little extra confusion may not be such a bad thing, particularly referring to people who are in the really unenviable position of having a foot in both worlds, as we say. They are suffering the effects of memory loss and increased confusion, but at the same time, they also are still connected to our world, and they're somewhat, to some degree, aware of what's happening to them. That can create an awful lot of distress, and it can really impinge on whatever quality of life is available to them. And sometimes actually helping them to cross over that line a little bit and have a little less awareness of what's happening to them allows them more to be in the moment. So that doesn't answer your question. That's why I'm telling you why a little confusion is good. Okay, but by the same token, a little extra confusion is not necessarily the best thing for somebody who has dementia. As a matter of fact, much of the time it isn't. So I would be very, very careful considering the use of cannabis in anybody's case for that reason. Now, as far as CBD is concerned, my experience, we have used certain products that are very, very high in CBD and low in THC. And my experience is that it seems like the benefits of the medication usually come when you have both of those components together. So again, I'm often thinking a lot about confusion, and I'm looking for it and assessing what role that's playing and what effects it's having, most particularly what effect it's having on the quality of life of our resident.
And have you used CBD dominant products that have small amounts of THC?
We have.
And do you find that those might be maybe sometimes better or worse? I guess it depends on the person, right?
Jury's out.
Jury's out.
Yeah.
Have you personally used any CBD products?
I've used a topical once or twice.
Yeah.
And actually I found it really helped.
Yeah. So how and why do you think cannabis helps the people living with dementia that it does help?
The residents for whom cannabis has been prescribed here all display what in the medical world is called behavioral disturbance. That can take many different forms, but it usually, as I was saying earlier, it usually involves some features, sometimes very minor, but that are consistent with psychosis, delusions, hallucinations. And if a person is having delusions, it means they're believing things that aren't true, making up stories in their head, and they could be acting based on those delusions. And it doesn't take a lot of imagination to think that if somebody is convinced that they are in the midst of a situation that is actually not congruent with the reality we have in there, that person may be acting in ways that are completely inappropriate for our environment and could actually be creating problems for that person in terms of their ability to function in that environment and how everybody else is reacting and responding to them. Therefore, when these kinds of problems have developed, they generally are of interest to the physician to mitigate and try to reduce to some level. And as I said, antipsychotics seem to be the most effective at that. We use them in small doses. And I have to say, my experience has been that cannabis is very, very efficacious in terms of enabling us to use very, very little of those medications. We use them together. When people are in that kind of state, that delusional state, they very easily can be agitated. The agitation can take many forms. They can be unhappy, they might be manic, they could be violent and confrontational. My experience has been that with or without the use of other medications, that quite frequently cannabis will reduce the intensity of that. And that definitely would be products that contain some level of THC. So I don't want to give the impression that we would ever want to give any of these medications for the purpose of making our lives easier or making people, more manageable. We do have to work to make it workable. We certainly don't want to tell any family member that their loved one has to leave here because their behavior is not appropriate for our environment or dangerous for the other people who are here. And cannabis is just one more tool in the toolbox that enables us to keep things within the lines and to help that person have the best quality of life they can have here, which is really the goal.
Yeah. Cool. Is there anything you want to add? I know you have to run to a care conference. Is there anything in particular you want to say about cannabis and dementia?
I just want to say that when I started here, well, let me put it this way. In my job, I interact with physicians quite a bit. I kind of function as a case manager for a lot of our residents. Therefore, I have a lot of interactions with physicians. I have seen a profound change over the last 5 years in the acceptance of cannabis as a useful and reasonable measure to take in the cases of the people that we work with. Even in the case of let us say the doctors who are rather close to retirement, who have a tendency to be more resistant to change, even they seem to be getting the picture. And the reason why is that the families of people with dementia, they talk to each other. There are support groups and there are organizations, and they compare notes. And the word is out. And a lot of our competitors, if you want to say, or other people in the business that I referred to earlier who may be a little bit under the stricture of being part of a large corporation, they're starting to feel that pressure from family members as well, and doctors, believe it or not. So it's a process.
That's amazing.
It's going to develop.
That's amazing. Taking what you said about how a little bit of cannabis helps the other medicine, do its job better. Mm-hmm. It seems to me that these other businesses would be looking to cannabis, especially since it takes so little cannabis to make life better for people living with dementia.
You would think so.
It's a small amount.
There may be profound change in the acceptance of cannabis as a useful tool for people living with dementia in Santa Rosa, but there is still the need for profound legislative action to deschedule cannabis, so that more than just a handful of residential care facilities in California are the vanguard of cannabis medicine for people living with dementia.
Yeah, Dan says families are telling their doctors that cannabis is helping their loved one living with dementia. Teepa Snow told us the same thing. Dr. Russo had told us that this is a bottom-up movement where patients are informing doctors that cannabis helps dementia. So talk to your doctor about cannabis medicine. Share this podcast. Tell your elected officials to deschedule cannabis. Help break the stigma and deliver relief to people in relationship with dementia. We can't thank John and his family enough for creating Primrose as a model for assisted living facilities everywhere and for doing something bold to enhance the quality of life for their residents living with dementia through cannabis medicine.
And for John and Dan to be bold enough to give us their first ever media interview, despite the ongoing risks under federal law. Thanks for joining us for Cannabis Helps Dementia. Be sure to download, subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting network.
And please share this podcast with anyone you know in relationship with dementia.
Do you want to tell your story of how cannabis helps dementia? Leave us a voice message on Anchor FM/Cannabis Helps Dementia or connect with us on the socials.
Check out the Society of Cannabis Clinicians website to find real medical professionals familiar with cannabis medicine in your area.
Because you remember, we're not doctors, just family caregivers turned advocates.
And don't forget, download, like, and share what you learned. Cannabis helps dementia.
Why don't you get wide?
Dragging you
Get up and
down
get
and
out.
get up
Get
in
rid
the
of
air.
that frown that's been dragging you down.
fly.
Get up in the air. Just pretend that you can fly. You'll never know if you can till you try. So get out and you're right. Be able and strong. Give vent to that intent you've had pent up for so long. Come on up and see what it's like being out where you're
Do
free.
something that's new.
Just do something that's real unique. Do something that's
And that was episode 6 of the Cannabis Helps Dementia podcast. Excuse me. Pardon me. Great episode, babe. Great episode. It's really great. That was awesome.
I find I'm inspired to make that list. I really want to make the list of assisted living facilities that have cannabis medicine programs. So
Shouldn't take long.
no, it won't take long. But there is one in New York, and there is one in Florida, and I know of at least 2 in California, 3 in California if you count a CBD one. So I think I should make that list.
I think that's a great idea, and of course you're speaking of or referencing one of the places in New York we've spoken about on our show.
Yes, the Hebrew Home.
The Hebrew Home, and
We learned about them from Abby Rosner also.
that's right.
Yes. She
and-
really has her finger on the pulse.
And actually, yeah, there was this from an article in Forbes on March 24th of this year, making cannabis medicine available to the isolated elderly. 2 institutions show it can be done. One being
The Hebrew Home in New York.
Hebrew Home in New York, and the other one in Florida,
Yeah, I'm really excited about that one.
which is interesting.
Yeah, it's the doctor. It's a lady doctor, Melanie Bone, is the medical director in charge of this study. They got approval to do this at this assisted living facility. It's a pilot program that they're doing a research study on. So I'm going to reach out to Dr. Bone and hopefully have her on the podcast.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'd like to know how that's going, how she got, inspired to do it, and all the things.
Well, everyone says we need more trials, we need more tests, we need more we need more studies. Yes, we need more studies. So any study will do, especially what's in a setting like that where it's on the legit and under a program. Because Florida is just barely into medical cannabis at this point.
Yes. Yes.
So that's really exciting that that is going on there. And California, of course, there should be 177 residential care facilities in that county.
My mic's not working.
Oh, wait. Hang on. Shit.
My husband muted me.
I did not. It's the box. The box turned off.
My husband muted me. I'm silenced by my man.
How's your power?
My power's top notch.
So you might have to say that again.
Which? No, I'm at the bottom of my notches. Low notch.
Low notch.
Low notch.
I
It's all right.
I should have changed on the fly.
That's okay. It's all good. Can you hear me now?
Yes, but they didn't hear you say what you said before. So you have to say it again.
Okay. Okay. It started off with something
Well,
like, I want to make that list.
We want to make. You're making the okay. So
I want to
to
make the
recap.
list. I want to make the list, starting with Primrose, of course, and I know another couple in California, and of course I want to reach out to Dr. Melanie Bone at Morse Assisted Living in Florida, who is in charge of this pilot program that's going to be a research study in Florida, and that's how they got approval to do it. Tipo was saying that you got to do whatever you can do, and so I'm interested to know a little more about exactly what they're doing and how it's going. So I'm hoping to invite Dr. Bone on the podcast and to talk about how she got it all going and how it is proceeding.
Yes, indeed.
That's pretty much it. Right?
That's pretty much it. You nailed it. I know there's been a lot of talk in the chat about COVID and the pandemic that's going on.
Ah, yes.
While our wonderful podcast was playing.
It's true. It's true. We have a story about that. We talked about it a few weeks ago when we first came back.
It's actually, we actually were this study that all these stories are referencing, at least the first one that came out, was this couple research partners in Alberta. This is Alberta? Canada somewhere.
That's Alberta.
It's Alberta. In search of preventative strategies, novel anti-inflammatory high CBD cannabis sativa extracts modulate ACE2 expression in COVID-19 gateway tissues. So that caused a bit of a hubbub in the media. We reported on it, that we had heard about it, as well as the Israeli study that's going on. With using CBD along with steroids. And every week, the media has been picking up on it. Every week, Jimmy Dore actually did a story on it last week, picking up another article. But this one is in the Detroit Metro Times this week, talking about the new study as well as the one in Israel. The one in Israel is, I believe, let's see... specifically looking at cytokine storm regulation, the one in Israel. The one in Canada is looking at prevention and with having to do with blocking receptors that the COVID virus can enter through. And apparently, according to these scientists in Canada, up to 70% of the access points of COVID can be blocked with high doses of CBD, is essentially what they were saying. Uh-oh. You're looking for batteries? Yeah. Here you go. No. Here you go. I've got charged ones right here. Here you go. Got to get Chela wired. Otherwise she's going to give up. Can't have that. But, I try to conserve batteries. Am I wrong for being environmental? And now I'm going to use rechargeable. And we have no kids. Wait, let's see if this works. Okay, powering up. Are you full? I'm full.
Can't see it.
Say something.
I'm 2. I have 2. It's enough. Dayenu.
Better than nothing.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's a little muffled, but I guess that would be the mask.
On. How about now? Good? Okay, good. All right, yay.
You're coming in. You're coming in hot. So yes, even in the New York Post, scientists believe cannabis could help prevent and treat coronavirus. So every week they're picking up on it. There hasn't been any. It's the Israeli study looking at the steroids, and it's the Canadians trying to get. They're not even really doing a study yet. They're trying to get it going, is what they're trying to do. But they've done it. They've had big success in the lab with human tissue, and they specifically a very these high. They looked at 400 products, 400 strains. Potentially, I guess, and they just found a dozen or so that are high CBD in content, and seem to do something. So they're looking to figure out what that is. If they can just get somebody to have a look at it. I mean, as Donald Trump would say, what could it hurt? But this what they're talking about. And I think in both of these instances, what they're talking about are similar dosages to Epidiolex. When you're looking at the way Epidiolex works and with the way CBD works, apparently in general, according to what we've been learning from doctors and researchers, and the way they look at it in Israel and all of the different the ways they're looking at very high dosages in the areas of like 20, 30 milligrams per kilogram. And that's really what they do with Epidiolex, that's the sort of dosing that they suggest for that with the severe cases that they use for epilepsy. But hey, if you're talking COVID and if you're talking acute therapies, sure, I'll take 1,500 milligrams of CBD every day or twice a day for a short period of time.
Short period of time.
Wouldn't you?
Listen, compared to dying or being on a ventilator or some other choice.
Oh, I ain't going on a ventilator. You go on a ventilator, it'll kill you.
Well, now, that's well outside of our wheelhouse, I'd say.
I know there's doctors that say you don't want to go on a ventilator. You don't want to go on a ventilator.
I know.
You don't absolutely have to.
I think it depends on your situation, and I'm not one to say.
I think they've been jumping to the
ventilator
gun too quick,
yes.
and that they've been causing more harm than good.
It's possible.
And until they figured that out, initially, because they didn't know what they're dealing with. They still know what they're dealing with, really. As far as the cuteness of it in emergency rooms is getting better. The cuteness of it. Who knew putting you down face down on your bed would help you breathe.
Prone. Apparently, a lot of people knew.
Apparently, a lot of
medical people know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think we're still learning about this. That's why it's called novel. I'm going to wear masks.
And part of the problem is that they're, when people are finally going into the hospital because they're so terrified to go in, they're so bad that they get to a point where it looks like they may need a ventilator, but and maybe they do at that point. But Rogan had somebody on. He had it, and the doctor said, no, you're not going on a ventilator, but you need that positive oxygen flow and pressurized oxygen somehow to get into your body. But ventilators do a lot of damage. So, but yeah, I don't know if we know any more today than we did 3 months ago.
No, we don't know shit.
When this all started.
Jason Tube 22 points out that they confused ventilator with vaporizer.
This
is the thing. This is the thing.
Well,
Thank you, Jason Tube 22.
I'm going to be hook me up to a vaporizer of 1-to-1 CBD and some FICO, some CBD FICO oil, a gram and a half a day.
Yep.
And we'll do our own experimentation. But of course, will we get it ever? Who knows? We're taking vitamin D. I noticed in the chat earlier.
There's nothing wrong with taking vitamin D.
But vitamin D is now it's all the rage now. It's gone viral. The fact that vitamin D, there's science showing that vitamin D levels have something to do with the mortality rates with COVID patients.
Because you're sick. Because you're not working right.
We're all sick.
Because your body ain't right.
70% of America is deficient in vitamin D because of the standard American diet.
Best pandemic ever.
And we're indoors all the time.
Best pandemic ever. Showing us all the things we need to fix.
So so stay indoors. Don't get any sun, even though vitamin D might be what cures you. But you can't. Did you know that like from Sacramento north, after starting in the fall, you don't get any vitamin D going outside. You don't get enough UVB in the winter months to make any vitamin D.
So you need a special
above
light.
That line.
Special light.
Apparently, you need to stand in front of one for 10 minutes naked on both sides, like my brother does in Maui.
Really? Why doesn't he just turn himself over and open his cheeks and just do the perianum?
The perianum.
I don't think that's how you say it.
Did we go there? We went to the perianum sunning?
We have entered the silly part of the show.
Well, this is the silly part of the show.
Regular watchers of the show can recognize it. We have entered the silly part of to
If you want the serious, you have to go listen to the podcast.
Yeah, the serious is the podcast.
That's the serious part of the show. Do go download and share that podcast on your favorite podcasting app because there. Oh, my sister Kathy just made a comment. Oh. My docs have recommended vitamin D for years. I love the sun also. Yes, apparently.
Me too.
Everybody needs vitamin D.
My doctors have been recommending it for me for years.
And everybody's deficient. You were deficient for sure for a while.
Yes, because, so guys, some of you know we're vegetarian, bordering on vegan. And for a long time, I was eating these, what?
No, go ahead.
These shakes, these green shakes, and I still do. I still eat these green shakes. But I was eating super greens. They have the super green bags from Trader Joe, and I would just buy 8 or 10 bags, and I'd eat those all week long. And I went for my physical thinking I was going to be fucking fantastic, and lo and behold, vitamin D lower than it's ever been in my whole life. Like they thought I had
terribly
cancer.
low. Yeah, like I'm surprised you didn't have dementia.
They thought I had cancer. Yeah, I'm surprised I wasn't more forgetful.
Yeah, because that causes that too.
It does.
So
Interesting.
I guess.
So it turns out that if you eat a lot of spinach and kale, these certain dark leafy greens, like a lot of them, like I did, it changes how your body metabolizes vitamin D. So even if you're supplementing and getting in the sun and all the things, it's not going to help. Plus, I was on a stage show, so I wasn't in the sun ever.
And you don't like to chew your greens, so you get a concentrated dose of...
It's blanched and blended. It's not concentrated. It's not juiced. It's not juiced. It's blanched and blended.
It's blanched and blended, yes.
It's not juiced.
That's right. You're getting all the fiber.
Everything.
You're getting everything in it.
So, that's cool, except if you eat a lot of leafy greens, watch out for how it's like something oxalates, some crazy word, I don't know. But,
well, yeah, I mean, they tell you you're out, they tell you, well, you know how you have to get it with fortified vitamin D foods like milk and
or fish oil,
egg, and so yeah, all of the supplemental things they supplement for people to get vitamin D are all non-vegetarian or non-vegan products.
Yeah.
So you do definitely, as a vegetarian, probably have to supplement, and you probably have to supplement more than you think.
And I need to go in the sun more often.
Yeah. And you have to eat with fat. You got to eat your supplements with a big meal,
and
otherwise
you
it's not
have
doing
to
it.
eat a variety of greens, not just the super dark green ones. You need to eat a variety of greens, which I do now.
Let's see. There was a comment I wanted to point out. Our comments are going by so fast now. Arachnid Soul. Also, vitamin D from the sun can't go through glass, so driving doesn't count unless the window is down.
Right.
So you're only getting vitamin D on your arm.
Yeah, on the one arm.
On the one arm. So make sure you rotate it around a little bit when you're sticking out there, because that's the only place you're getting vitamin D.
And ride as a passenger, so you can get the other side.
And it's the other side, or get a convertible.
Yeah.
So, and then in the winter, it doesn't matter if you're above the 33rd parallel or whatever it is, I don't know, above Sacramento, you're not getting any vitamin D, so you should supplement. And apparently, it's not a bad idea in this COVID season, because it looks like we're going to have cold, flu, and COVID season from now on. And did you know that 25% of the people say they're not going to take this silly vaccine that they're making?
I'm one of them.
Recent polling saying, no, I'm not taking that vaccine.
No, I'm not taking that vaccine.
Yeah, I'm in that group.
Yeah, I'm in that group too.
I'm going to keep my immune system up. I'm going to keep my vitamin D levels up. I'm going to
socially distance.
Socially distance.
Wash my hands.
I don't like people anyway, so that's good.
We're good.
And I'm going to nourish my endocannabinoid system.
That's right.
And make sure that we are, using all the plant medicine we can to make our lives better.
Arachnid Soul is giving us a little tip.
Yes.
If you put certain mushrooms in the sun for a while, they gain vitamin D. You can get it that way.
Oh, that's
rad.
Speaking of,
Dave does eats loads of different kinds of mushrooms, all kinds, and he's going to become a mushroom farmer.
I am. I'm waiting for my grain spawn to show up. I don't know where it is. It might be delayed because of COVID.
Maybe he got stuck in Denver.
Maybe. But I'm also, speaking of fungus, the humongous fungus that is among us, that's a cool idea. And you have to cook mushrooms to get any benefit. You have to cook mushrooms, period. When you eat them, you have to cook mushrooms. Make sure and portobellos for sure. You have to cook. But that's the way you get the nutrients out of mushrooms, is by releasing them by cooking. So I would not be surprised if mushrooms could create more vitamin D. I am currently reading Dave's Book Club. I just got Entangled Life. How Fungi Make Our Worlds, Change Our Minds, and Shape Our Futures by Merlin Sheldrake. So I'll be letting you know that's just getting into it. So it looks like a lot of fun. Because, yes, I am looking into growing medicinal as well as gourmet edible mushrooms, like lion's mane and oyster, and shiitakes take a while, but other such things. And because, we should grow our own food. And I eat a lot of mushrooms, and I love them. So we're going to grow microgreens and mushrooms so that we can survive the coming Hunger Games version. What stage are we in now, Chela? Did we decide? We're not pre-Hunger Games yet. Hunger Games is like...
the Hunger Games is after. We are
after
well
the
pre.
purge,
I'd say we are pre-purge.
Pre-purge.
Pre-purge. I'd say we're somewhere around Brazil, pre-V.
Brazil Privy. I'm on that timeline. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
We're pretty Brazil-y right now.
Yeah. We're eventually headed toward Mad Max. But that's, we're going to...
Oh, what was that other one? Oh, Children of Men.
Right.
That was another one that I really enjoyed as far as the dystopian future goes. And the road.
Well, yeah, we might be in the Children of Men time.
Yeah, I think that's right. That's around
time.
there. Yeah, but we're not quite Handmaid's Tale. No. I think we're pretty close to Brazil.
Although, wait a minute.
In the Venn
now
diagram
that I'm starting
of dystopian
to think
movies.
about, wait, time out, rewind. Handmaid's Tale. We might be, God damn those people for making that TV show. And all those people watch it. And I'm like, really guys, stop watching that. You're powerful creators, please.
Yes.
With all the rules that they've been putting on us lately, it's a little Handmaid's Tale-y. Except it's with all people, not just women.
Right.
Handmaid's Tale was just women of a certain class.
That's right.
Well, childbearing women. I'm free. Anyway, please, let's get back to the news.
Let me tell you, I've never seen so many fat people want to go to the gym in my life.
Listen, walk in your fucking neighborhood, yo. Everyone, seriously.
The gym. We need to open the gym.
Everybody, focus on your health. Focus on your health. Focus on your health. Focus on your health. Figure out what that is for you. Everybody has their own path.
Kathy says their local high school bought the Hunger Games series for all the kids to read.
So they can be prepared.
Hey, listen, what scale do they fit? Those Hunger Games movies? We're watching all the Hunger Games movies right now again.
Yeah, we're on 3 tonight, but I have to do a 2 classes.
And what is it? What is that scale where she talks to another woman, not about a man?
Yes, Bechdel.
The Bechdel
test.
Mm-hmm.
She speaks to another female character, not about a man.
Not about a man, right?
Right, they speak to each other. It's 4 things.
Yeah, I can't remember what they were. But all the movies apparently fit the...
Yeah. No, most movies don't,
right,
by the way.
Yes,
most movies do not...
The anomaly of it.
Fit the pass the Bechdel test.
So yes, it's pre-purge. We're in Brazil.
Possibly
children of men with a little
Handmaid's Tale thrown in on the side. Yeah, well, handmade seasoning.
And for those of you who had not seen Brazil, you should definitely see Brazil.
Absolutely,
it's
Brazil.
One of my favorite movies of all time, and it is so au courant.
Yeah, it's very good.
But we digress. So stay tuned. We shall see if anybody lets the world study cannabis and CBD and its effects to COVID. And believe me, you will find out here first if this happens and if we get any more news, other than the fact that they're trying to get these studies done. The Israeli study will probably be something that's done quicker than this Canadian one, because it doesn't even like that thing's going anywhere. But we'll see. You never know. People are looking for answers, and they're turning. Looks like they're turning towards CBD. They're looking towards CBD as an answer maybe for COVID. And New York Times has an article this week, which is quite interesting. A hidden origin story of the CBD craze. The cure-all debate over the cannabis compound is distracted from the serious and seriously odd backstory of how cannabidiol conquered the country. Fascinating story about a bunch of potheads that sat around a circle at somebody's house, passing bags and bongs, trying to figure out how, based on research that had just come out looking at mice, that suggested they might have quite possibly a panacea in CBD. This group got together in 2011. It says they sat in a circle at a house in the hills a few hours north of San Francisco.
I bet we know some of those people.
We might actually. Where wine country becomes weed country, to discuss the therapeutic potential of CBD and how to get people to take it seriously. Several studies in rodents and in cell cultures have suggested that CBD, a non-intoxicating compound from the cannabis plant, more formally known as cannabidiol, could protect the nervous system, modulate blood flow, slow the growth of cancer cells, and provide relief from seizures, pain, anxiety, and inflammation. Quote,
and Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah, well, that's, yeah.
In the big brackets.
Quote, we were talking about what can we do with this, recalled Samantha Miller, who hosted the event at her split-level house wedged between redwoods and a creek below. A headstrong biochemist, she had been growing marijuana since the age of 14 and had just quit a 6-figure job to start her own cannabis testing lab. After 2 years of tracking down high CBD pot plants and building momentum, the group began to devise ways to persuade more farmers to grow strains with CBD, which had largely been bred out of American pot since it doesn't get you high. In addition to convincing marijuana dispensaries to widely carry CBD, they wanted to educate the public about the promising benefits. The group of 10 or so brainstormed. A balloon of vaporized pot was passed in one direction and a bong in the other. There was a strong sense that this was really going to be something. Boy, were they not wrong about that. So a mere 9 years ago, some industrious stoners and a biochemist sat around and tried to and figured out a way to market CBD and get people to grow CBD again. Apparently, because those low levels of THC. THC was, what was in the medicine, what was in the plant. Turns out it still is part of the medicine that's in the plant. And not everybody just works with just CBD, especially isolates. You need the THC. You need the full spectrum. So fascinating story. Good read in the New York Times. It's the New York Times, but it's a expose kind of thing on cannabis. So it's not bad. There is a good story in the Baltimore Sun this week. Our friends over at Project CBD are mentioned.
I bet you that's one of the people that was there.
Oh, maybe. Yes, it's quite possible. You think? Yeah, I'll bet you he was in that. I'd like to know the list of that 10 that was in that group. But this is what happens to your body when you consume CBD. And it's tells you exactly what goes on, the receptors, what it does. And that information coming from Project CBD, of course, founded by, now I want to say Dr. Todd McArea, but it's not Dr. Todd McArea. Dr. Martin Lee, Dr. Martin Lee. Martin Lee.
Just Martin Lee.
Just Martin Lee.
Journalist
but they were all
extraordinaire.
Journalist extraordinaire, but all part of that group.
Advocate.
Project CBD, a really good educational site for all things cannabis, but particularly CBD. They have an article this week, Cannabis, Gateway to Herbal Medicine, which expands upon what we talked about before that on the podcast, actually, about how, people embracing cannabis medicine is opening up their eyes to other plants, other fungi as well, and ways to use the earth and nature to heal ourselves. And boy,
and to thrive.
And thrive, yeah. And couldn't we use a little bit of that right now?
Right.
So considering the earth is revolting and trying to shake us off like a cancer with these diseases, these viruses that are coming out of our encroachment onto nature's and the human or the animals that we're destroying. I mean, for the environment as well, which is really crazy. So Project CBD, great source of education and information every week over there. And here's a study. Speaking of studies, Ganjapreneur picked up on this. Prenatal cannabis exposure alone not associated with cognitive impairments.
Who wrote that?
That was picked up by Ganjapreneur, but it's in Frontiers in Psychology.
That is Dr. Sherry Afai, also a friend of the show.
I'm sorry?
Wasn't that Dr. Sherry Afai's piece? No.
In Ganjapreneur?
No, the original.
Oh, the study is not Dr. Yafai.
Oh, Dr. Yafai wrote one also this week about
oh, really? We should find that.
Yeah.
This one is in the Frontiers in Psychology. Totality of the evidence suggests prenatal cannabis exposure does not lead to cognitive impairments, a systematic and critical review. So, conclusions. The current evidence does not suggest that prenatal cannabis exposure alone is associated with clinically significant cognitive functioning impairments. So there's a study for you. We need more studies. There's one. Here's another one. Adult use legalization associated with decline in youth treatment admissions. Because, that's what they do with the kids, is they put them in treatment. They don't want to arrest kids.
Uh-oh. You're getting to the portion of the show that I should just go la la la, aren't you? Very good flow.
Thank you. I had a little time to put a flow together today.
Really, I'm impressed.
We did last week.
I should leave you alone also every morning on Sunday.
I did this for 2 years.
I know, but I should leave you alone on Sunday mornings and let you do this because it's a good flow, babe. Good job.
Well, it took a little time, and but it was good. I organized my new thoughts.
Yeah, I love it.
That's all.
Yeah, good job.
So and you love studies, and this is
all
this week. This is all this week. This is
You're
from
so sweet to me.
Cannabis. Cannabis caught this study: adult use legalization associated with decline in youth treatment admissions. Because yes, I said that's true. That's what we do with the youths. When we bust them, we put them into treatment. But maybe we should do that with adults too. What do you think, Chela?
I started my class.
Oh, good. I'm going to do the politics and news now, and so Chela's going to zone out. I'd say spark up, but you're not combusting on the show.
No, I'll monitor the chat and stuff.
You monitor the chat. Monitor the chat. Don't take your test. Monitor the chat. Well, this was one of our headlines for today. Looks like marijuana banking might have a 50-50 shot of actually making it through in this coronavirus package, where we get another smooth $1,200, which we finally got ours. But we'll get another $1,200 out of the $3 trillion. But it looks like cannabis might get its banking, because you know why? Money's dirty. That was basically what Perlmutter said. Is money's dirty. And in the time of coronavirus, why do you want to be handling dirty money? You should just be able to bank. So they're using the coronavirus package, the coronavirus, to get marijuana banking through, which has been, sort of a bugaboo of Mr. Cory Gardner in Colorado. Senator Cory Gardner has made cannabis basically...
A lot of people don't like him.
A lot of people don't like him, but he has made cannabis a major part of his political career in Colorado, and telling the cannabis industry that he's going to do all he can, and basically he hasn't been able to do anything. So Cory's marijuana problem is that the marijuana industry is not happy with Cory Gardner
because he's a turd.
Well, he is.
Cory Gardner's a turd. It has nothing to do with marijuana.
Apparently he's
cannabis.
Apparently he's a feckless turd.
He's a feckless turd
because he can't get the marijuana banking bill or protection of the states
because he has no friends.
Through Congress.
Because he's a turd. The only good thing about him is the cannabis thing.
I thought you were monitoring the chat.
Sorry. You said things that just really grew my mind. Go on.
I'm not saying you have to monitor the chat.
No, go on.
I want you involved in the news. And Cory Gardner, if he can't make it happen for the cannabis industry, especially in this coronavirus package, he's going to have issues getting reelected, and he's running against someone who is no fan of cannabis. That would be Hickenlooper, who was not a fan. He's a fan now, but he was not a fan of cannabis when he was governor. But legalization. So that's who he's going up against. But he might have trouble because he has not been able to come through for the cannabis industry. States Act, along with Elizabeth Warren, have not been able to get the States Act through. Meanwhile, that's right, Joe Biden knows a lot of weed smokers, and he thinks they should all go to rehab and not jail. That's right, folks. That the science is not out. The science is still out on its gateway ability to get people to use other drugs, and also that you shouldn't be in jail, but you should definitely go to mandatory rehab. I'm not kidding you. We went from Bernie Sanders going to deschedule cannabis by executive order on day one. That was our candidate. Now we get this. Cover your ears, Chela. Cover your ears.
And my eyes. I have not enough appendages. I'm going to go to a different screen. I'm not monitoring the chat. Somebody else with a wrench, make sure nothing bad happens.
Black America.
Oh.
And particularly the portion of it that relates to how, in fact, we're going to deal with the prison system. If you are in prison, if you are convicted of a crime, no one should be going to jail for a drug crime. Period. Nobody. No matter what the crime, particularly marijuana, which makes no sense for people to go to jail. They should be just wiped out completely. And the reason is that, if anything, for those crimes that are actually continue to be crimes, scheduled crimes, which marijuana shouldn't be anymore, what is happening is you shouldn't go to prison. You should go to a mandatory rehabilitation. Mm-hmm. It costs less to put people in a drug rehabilitation program than it does in jail. And you have a chance. We got to give people a chance.
You know, Vice President Biden, I've read some of your Black agenda, and you say that you would decriminalize marijuana. What's the difference between legalizing it and decriminalizing it?
Because they're trying to find out whether or not there is any impact on the use of marijuana, not in leading you to other drugs, but what it affects. Does it affect long-term development of the brain? And we should wait till the studies are done. I think science matters.
I think we got decades and decades of studies from actual weed smokers, though.
Yeah, I do. I know a lot of weed smokers.
I want to ask you about your running
Amy
mate.
Klobuchar. So there you go, folks. Mandatory rehabilitation. Is he going to make camps for that? I'm wondering how is going to have to expand the drug rehab programs, I guess. So yeah, the science is out. And Charlemagne the God nailed it. We got plenty of evidence. Decades of weed smokers. Oh, and guess what else? Gee, that study that came out this week. That prenatal cannabis exposure alone not associated with cognitive impairment. So there's a study for you. Mm-hmm. So we've gone from great to horrendous. I mean, I don't think any of those candidates and the Democrats have a worse. Maybe Kamala Harris was worse, or at least equal to Biden on this one. But Biden is probably got to be the worst. I mean, and that's literally all Donald Trump would have to do to end that problem. It would be, I can use that with by executive order. Kim Kardashian, if he finds out that CBD cures COVID, what the hell do you think is going to happen?
First, he has to invest in it, and then
first he's going to have to invest
Trump CBD
in a CBD company. Trump CBD.
45 CBD. No, it's going to be.
I'm going to write the sketch. I'm going to write the sketch before somebody else does. That's brilliant, Chela. Trump CBD. Try Trump CBD at your local 7-Eleven, at your gas station. Pick it up at your gas station. It's got heavy metals in it. It doesn't have any CBD in it. Wow. That would be great. No, but seriously, if something comes out and he gets wind of this, and like you say, Chela, and he invests in a CBD company and he says something, he'll just be like, oh, what, I got to decriminalize? Of course, technically, cannabidiol has been descheduled, but it's only if it's an approved FDA product. So you still can't make it in your backyard and be legally allowed to use cannabidiol.
I'd like to mention a thread in the chat here.
Yes. Is it relevant?
Yes.
Yes.
Arachnid
I saw that
Soul,
thread. Yes.
Arachnid Soul mentions, I'm not going to go too far back, but Arachnid Soul mentions Joe supported the war. Oh, first of all, told her that she's not black.
Yeah, so that was in this interview, actually.
Joe supported the war on drugs more than anyone, supported a crime bill that put users in prison, and continues, I've quit drinking since starting cannabis. It was a gateway off of drinking. People will be smoking in any Biden cannabis camp. And by the way, that guy is known for giving easy interviews, Charlemagne. So to see Joe fail with him is really a joke.
True story.
Last thing. Biden not only has nothing for black people, he has nothing for anyone.
Yeah.
I concur.
There's Steph Samarano yesterday was like, there is no way I am voting. But there are a lot of people. What is it, that 3% of the Bernie people are giving money to Joe Biden? Something like that.
That's awesome.
Some absurd low number.
I love it. That's so great.
Are giving money. So yeah, no, they burn. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, don't get fooled again. As Bush would say.
That's a quote.
So that's a quote. So yeah, he's gonna have a little trouble. And actually, yeah, it's true. Charlemagne actually did more journalism on that interview than any mainstream journalism, any of the mainstream sycophants that have had him on to treat him. Who was it? I think Glenn Greenwald said they treat him like it's their demented grandfather has come over and they're talking to them, or they're going to visit him in his retirement home.
That's about right.
And be nice to him. And that's the way the mainstream media treats him. And actually, Charlemagne did better journalism and called him on more shit than anyone does, even though it was a softball. It was very a softball, and he just and that came out of his mouth like things do. I mean, he's been known for gaffes, and those are just getting better and better. But I mean, it ended up on a T-shirt in 2 seconds, and that's in this interview as well. So
I'm really excited to see what the Democrats are going to do about that. It's really going to be interesting this summer. I mean, it really is. They can't let this continue.
Batten down the hatches, folks. Batten down. Although he's
guess it's going to be Amy Klobuchar.
The latest. That's who he's. That's the rumor. And
because when he gets 25th Amendmented, if he's the nominee, wouldn't it go to her?
That's right.
In their weird logic.
That's right. They're fine with that.
I know that it should be Bernie. Everybody in the chat knows that it should be Bernie.
She's got staplers on the ready to throw at people.
Yeah,
so
she makes no. For her to be the first woman president, this is not good, guys. Women, ladies,
and that's
not
the thing.
good.
You know, it's getting so bad with Trump and
not a good
and
example.
The handling of the pandemic and the Biden is up in the polls like 48-40 on Fox, on the Fox poll. So. And Trump tweeted, "You got to fire your pollsters at Fox. Fire those terrible pollsters." So, I mean, Biden may just stumble right into it just because there's 500,000 people dead by November, which is, I mean, we're already at 100,000. We're catching up to Alzheimer's numbers in 3 months. So
that's but that's over a whole year.
I know.
Of Alzheimer's.
I know.
In just 3 months.
So it's like the numbers are probably low too because they've stopped counting in a lot of the places. Although Georgia, look at that. I mean, it's here with it. It's here, guys. They're gonna try to come up with this vaccine that they're gonna want to give everybody.
No,
that's the plan.
No,
they're gonna want to give you an app so they can track everywhere you go.
Nope.
That's the plan, and they're using this pandemic,
everyone's
literally
fear of
terrorizing every human on the planet.
Everyone's fear of dying.
And
not afraid of dying.
And now they're this is like 9/11 on steroids. It's the whole planet. They're going to be able to track and trace the whole and vaccine the whole planet. And boy, that's exactly what they want.
So we need to make plans because, as we all know, electoral politics is a joke. And we need to make gardens and figure out where we can live in the mountains and all that kind of good stuff because the time
where we can
is
live
near.
in the mountains. We're all gonna leave the cities and become farmers again. Is what we're gonna do.
As rebels in the fucking hills.
Yes. What was it? Red Dawn, right? Rebels were in the Wolverines. No. Growing our weed and our.
Oh my gosh, Gypsy Lady Lee, thank you so much for your super chat.
Holy moly.
I'm like, what's this thing in the thing? Oh my God. I'm not used to this. Thank you very much.
Gypsy Lady Lee, thank you so much for your support. Oh, and that's lovely. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. They have monetized our channel. Literally
awesome.
as soon as this video is over, it gets demonetized.
That's okay.
As soon as I stop streaming, because it's like, oh, it's cannabis. So we can't support that. Our advertisers don't support that.
But the city of Los Angeles said we could put it on a bus bench.
How about that?
Now we need to come up with money for a bus bench.
We're going to be able to advertise our cannabis podcast on a bus bench, which I think is a brilliant idea.
Yes. So now I'm going to ask all the big, deep money, big organizing, big industry organizations who have lots of money to finance a year's worth of bus benches for us around the main hospitals around LA.
Because this is a coup because you can't put the plant or the word on any
city-owned property.
City-owned property that is a commercial,
cannabis
a product or entity, a corporate or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And they approved Cannabis Helps Dementia podcast with leaves and jar, and they're like, they're fine with it. We're like, really?
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, we're looking into that. Yeah, well, we're going to look into that.
Because we want to spread, because we want more people to hear it. We want to spread the word. So please, thank you, Gypsy Lady Lee. Thank you so much for your support. Please share the show. Continuing support from day one. OG.
You share us on Twitter.
Part of the
really
OG
appreciate
420.
That. You know how much I love it.
That's right.
So
absolutely.
Thank you. I'm afraid of the Twitter. Kind of allergic.
You're getting better. You're getting better with the Hootsuite.
Yeah,
let me wrap up the news, then we can move on.
Yeah.
You can go on to your class.
Oh, good.
And get that finished so that so that when Hollywood comes back in 2 months, you can go back to work.
Yeah, but I have a deadline by the night at midnight. It's 3 hours.
So good news, bad news in the States, guys. Good news, bad news in the States. Oklahoma, where it is the best little cannabis medical marijuana law in the country. Oklahoma has. It's really great. And but no, can't get delivery. More and more states have been opening up delivery since this COVID crisis because guess what? Cannabis is essential, folks. People need their medicine. The sales are through the roof. The companies that actually know what they're doing and are out there to help people, they're surviving. They're hiring, and delivery people are being allowed to deliver because COVID. Except Oklahoma, the governor, they passed a bill to allow it, and the governor vetoed it, but they weren't able to override it, so they can't get the best little medical marijuana law in the country. Took a little hit.
Can't get delivery.
Took a little hit, but it's still good.
What do you want to bet that governor gets voted out?
Cannabis 2020. We say that cannabis was gonna be big this year. We meant politically, for the most part. We didn't know it was actually gonna save the planet. And,
but
we'll see.
Yeah.
It's gonna, but seriously, they're looking at cannabis to save the economy in many of these states.
Really? Good.
Oh yeah, they're like
they need to federally deschedule.
We're gonna have to legalize it. That's what we talked about that on last week's show or the week before.
It's the only thing we can do.
COVID is pushing legalization because they're going to need that tax revenue to get back.
Call your lawmakers. Tell them your ideas. Deschedule cannabis. Make it legal across the land so that we can rebuild our economy.
Exactly.
Because there's no events, you guys. Going to be no fucking events for years. And our work is basically events.
The Zoom family meetings are great, but concerts not so much. And you can't. And you know what they are? They're figuring out how to make media. And the longer we let them figure out how to make media without crew? And without
we're not going to have jobs.
Bad news. Yeah.
Oh, God.
And they're like, we can do this. We can do this. Have you seen Saturday Night Live?
Yeah, they've got the artists. Very skeletal crew. It's going to be bad. And that means our pension, our health care. I don't want to digress. I'm sorry.
Back to the news.
We got to deschedule cannabis. Deschedule cannabis.
Meanwhile, how about decriminalize? It's been decriminalized in Virginia.
Okay, I'll take it for now.
Marijuana moment. Virginia governor officially signs marijuana decriminalization bills into law. So that's good. That's good. What are the details? Let's see. Revised bills were sent back to Northam, and now he officially approved them. In a press release, Northam didn't explicitly discuss the decriminalization legislation, but said he is proud of the accomplishments we made together during the General Assembly session, which apparently they were able to do even during COVID. Under the legislation, possessing up to 1 ounce of cannabis will be punishable by a $25 fine. Wow, that's pretty good. It was $100 in California, wasn't it?
Used to be, yes.
Used to be $100 fine. With no threat of jail time and no criminal record. Current Virginia law makes this simple possession punishable by a maximum of $500 fine and up to 30 days in jail and a criminal record. So good on you, Virginia. Doing something good with regards to decriminalizing. Now let's get it descheduled so we can get it, to the people that need it, not just the people that want it. Meanwhile, speaking of greed and the failures of corporate cannabis, we've watched the rise and fall of this company on Reefer Revolution and our show for the last 2 years. And boy, how they fell. The story in Politico magazine. Lavish parties, greedy polls, and panic rooms. How the apple of pot collapsed. MedMen was the country's hottest pot startup until it flamed out. Its fail has exposed the gap between, quote, green rush hype and the realities of a troubled industry.
No, fuck that. They were greedy motherfuckers, and they constantly were against home grow. Fuck MedMen. They get what they deserve.
Absolutely.
Sorry, you were saying.
Here. I'm with you.
You had a news story. I was just inspired. I think the Blue Dream is kicking in.
That must be the case. You're going to get through that class in no time.
No, it's 3 hours.
Oh God. You have to click through it all.
I'm clicking.
Okay, good.
I'm clicking.
Get to the test. From the article. Beeman, who I guess is he was the let's see, what's his name? Adam Bierman, sorry. It was the guy who started it. Bierman, who styled himself the Steve Jobs of the green rush into legal weed, sported a red hoodie emblazoned with a white pot leaf. It was early June 2018, barely a week since MedMen, the cannabis business he led, had gone public on a Canadian stock exchange, boasting an implied valuation of $1.6 billion. Ooh, boy, got greedy quick, didn't he? Meanwhile, what's really going on? Let's see, a little deeper in here. Here we go. Just a few months after its Abbot Kinney opening, it's in Venice, California, it all began to unravel. The company got hit with a class action lawsuit from the employees alleging labor law violations. Miffed investors sued the founders, accusing them of self-dealing and other underhanded tactics. A former chief financial officer filed a blockbuster complaint. Put my glasses on, yo. Or make it bigger.
You're an old man. Just do it.
Filed a blockbuster complaint in a Los Angeles court accusing the founders of a slew of misdeeds, from manipulating MedMen's stock price to bank fraud, to seeking private intelligence groups to get dirt on their enemies, to calling an LA city councilman a midget Negro, quote.
Oh my.
And making an illegal straw man contribution to a Nevada politician. MedMen stands as a cautionary tale of American Wild West capitalism. You can say that again. This is exactly what Prop 64 unleashed.
Oh, that's not all.
Now it created it has allowed the creation of some good craft cannabis companies.
But the greedy politicians part is part of that Prop 64 legacy situation, because now we're seeing how fucking greedy and fucked up politicians really are because of that pay-to-play bullshit that's being exposed. And you think it was only with cannabis?
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Prop 64,
That's
exposing
right.
Corruption in government.
That's right. Oh, well, there's just, in every state, this has happened. Every state, politicians have been paid off. Well, that was Nevada.
Yes.
Yeah, it was in Nevada.
Oh, yeah.
So, they were a national company. So MedMen going
Florida.
down hard.
Arachnid Soul is celebrating. We took down MedMen, and next is Amazon.
That's right. And South Park might have had something to do with that, too. The South Park MedMen episodes were freaking hilarious.
So good.
You want me to help you destroy all homegrown South Park? Okay. Highly recommend that episode. But one last story, Chela, in entertainment news. Under scoop fire, the hottest new wellness trends. Here are 6 celebrities that love CBD.
Under scoop fire.
Under scoop fire. I don't know what this is. It's just I have a Cannabis Helps Dementia news alert.
Neato. Okay, well, I'll take it.
So
this was this week.
We got Kim Kardashian.
Uh-huh.
We got Morgan Freeman, Jennifer Aniston, Whoopi Goldberg. Those are on the list. Tom Hanks also on the list. But the one that caught my eye, of course, was Seth Rogen, who you know, worked with. Seth Rogen is an American actor who is well known for his affinity for marijuana. Yes. However, Rogen has shown increased attention towards CBD and its medical benefits. He has started a company up in Canada. He has been heard to be specifically interested in how cannabidiol can help with Alzheimer's disease. Now, we have not heard this.
This is news to me.
So if this is true, this is good news, because we have been trying for a long time to lobby that.
To lobby that, yes.
To lobby
so
that
let's
with
see
him.
how that has. I'm going to inquire this week how that has evolved.
Yes.
It's exciting.
It is exciting. It is exciting
because he has a big reach and a cannabis company in Canada.
True story.
Big reach.
And it's also exciting that despite COVID and the pandemic, cannabis rises to the occasion, meets the marijuana moment, if you will, because that just fits, but meets the moment and rises to the occasion, both in the lab, being looked at for COVID, being essential as a business, helping with the economy, with companies that are run well and have the cash to survive, which they didn't, obviously. Not to mention their ethics and criminality, quite frankly. But besides that, there are companies that are well organized and make amazing products, and they are thriving during this pandemic as cannabis has become essential in many states that have embraced it. and all of those states that will be embracing it to get them out of this hole that this pandemic and this shutdown and lockdown, or whatever you want to call it, safer at home, scheme, scam, plan. Have you seen the last installment of the Colbert Report on Bill Gates? You got to watch it, because this is the guy they're going to that says, how are you going to solve this problem for us? And he's been planning to solve this problem for a long time. And gee, he's got a solution. He has multiple solutions to this problem, and he is in control of it. Amazing how that works. So this, as many crises in the world and in the country are taken advantage of by politicians and others, giant corporations. We must slow down, go start low and go slow, as they say in cannabis, and be very aware of what governments will do in the times of crisis and fear.
I still like the masks.
I
like wearing a mask.
I can find 10 things right now I like about this whole idea.
Too. But I don't like the whole, liberty,
the traffic,
liberty thing,
the air, the animals,
not
having
to have to go out.
3 people helping you at Home Depot.
Love that. That was great. That was great.
Hey, listen, if I could wait, stand in a line where nobody's crowding on you to go inside and cruise through and get out in 15 minutes. Everybody's like, can I help you find something? Because I want you to get out of my store.
Okay, yeah, sure, let's go.
Awesome.
Let's do this.
Listen, the biggest problem we're going to have is restaurants. We like to go out to eat. So that's literally the only negative thing that I can think of.
But, not eating out helps me stay on my good eating food.
Now,
staying home. It's good for me.
We aren't working.
Yeah, not having any money coming in other than unemployment, but eventually that's going to end. When that ends, then it's going to be a thing.
Yeah. So
for now, it's great.
Yeah.
All is well. And the universe is abundant. Everything's working out.
Everything's always working out for us. And everything is always working out for you, too.
That's right.
Even if you don't know it.
All y'all.
So,
and you're powerful creators, so make sure you focus
on
what you want. And don't talk about what you don't want a lot. I know it's hard to eliminate.
Preach it, Coach. Say it.
I'm just saying. I don't want to say anymore.
Arachnid Soul. I agree, Dave. There are a lot of positives. Listen, when was the last time you said hello to that many neighbors on the street?
Right?
Everybody's wearing a mask. Usually people wearing a mask you don't trust. So now you're wearing a mask. It forces you to say hello to people. It's like, hi, it's okay. I'm not an asshole.
Hi. Hi. I was at the store and I was wearing this mask, and suddenly I smelled a lot of cannabis.
Oh, that's funny.
And we were at Sprouts. And it wasn't me.
Oh, but somebody thought it was you.
Somebody, yeah, and the guy I was asking a question to, I was asking a question of one of the employees, and I was looking up at him, he was on the ladder, and I'm like, hey, where's the whatever that I was asking about? And I said, and just so you know, it smells great in here, but it's not me.
That would
and
be
he laughed.
That would be because DC is getting ready to get its cannabis sales going, I think. But that would be right now. It's a gift economy. But that would be a great way. You could sell masks, sell cannabis masks, and include an eighth of $50 masks.
Yeah.
And include your cannabis gift in DC. But that's changing in DC too. So there are some positives. You got to make lemon out of lemonade. Or lemonade out of lemons.
That's why I don't like talking
orange,
about politics stuff.
Orange Julius out of oranges, as Trump would say. But yeah, I think we're gonna survive this. We're gonna make it through. It's probably not gonna go away.
No.
But stay healthy.
But your excellent
Take your vitamin
health
D.
is all you need.
Nurture your endocannabinoid system. Eat raw, eat food. Eat raw, fresh, whole foods.
Get vitamin D.
Get vitamin D.
Get sleep.
All the things.
Manage stress.
And listen, you gotta manage stress. You gotta relax. You gotta laugh. Get high. Have a good time.
I think this is fun.
Herbal vaporize. Take an edible. Don't stop your cannabis regimen if you have one.
That's what the doctors are saying.
That's what the doctors say, and it's especially in this time that Abby Rosner was talking about that this week, or that in that article about these are anxious times. These are we should look to this medicine to relieve that anxiety and that stress, because stress is a killer. Stress kills more than COVID. The stress over COVID is probably causing more damage than COVID is in generally, based on who's getting it right now. Because most people are getting it are not symptomatic. Which is kind of a double-edged sword, because the ones that do get it are highly symptomatic for the most part. The ones that it really affects.
I don't want to talk about this.
Because of morbidity, because of because of basically sickness, because we are a sick country. That's
we don't
part
eat
of
right. We don't
that
exercise.
That's real. I think that's why our numbers are so freaking out of the ballpark.
Yes.
Compared to the other countries, even Italy, even all the other, that were so high at the beginning, and it's like, oh my God, they're old people, because they're older population. But we have a sick population. We have a very sick population. 70% of the country has insufficient vitamin D levels, and apparently that can kill you with COVID. So get your vitamin D levels up, eat your whole foods, take your whole plant cannabis medicine in tincture or herbal vaporizer form, or some other healthy way to get it, because there are so many ways. And also go follow and listen to Cannabis Helps Dementia, because that's something to listen to that isn't COVID related. That's good news for people living with dementia, and that they can get some relief in the states that they have access to it. Even in Texas, where our young lady moved to, they legally allow CBD for Alzheimer's patients. So she's hopefully going to be able to get connected with the doctor in the facility to allow her to use her CBD, because it's, as we heard from the Primrose interview, it's the floor, it's the base that makes everything else work better.
Yeah, she's on super tiny amounts of the other stuff that just had to be added.
Have you gotten into the Nancy Pelosi line of?
I hate to say it, but she was right about this. This is really good.
Mask fashion
Awesome.
sense.
I mean, right, you guys? This is fabulous.
It covers a world of sins.
Multitude of sins for women of a certain age. Covers my crepey neck and my décolletage.
I'm sorry?
My décolletage. Anyway, I think that this is going to teach us how to be better, healthier people. This is my favorite scarf. I just got it.
It's my favorite. The one I prefer.
Yeah, everybody needs to start growing food. Work with your neighbors, grow food, and speak to your elected officials about descheduling cannabis.
That's right, guys. I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes.
Please remember, do check out the podcast and
share the podcast.
Share the podcast. Share this broadcast. The
Write
podcast
a
video
for the podcast.
The podcast will be up on YouTube, but we are trying to get the podcast thing going. So, Gypsy Lady Lee, thank you again so much for your support. Really appreciate it. And we will be back next week with more cannabis news. We'll have a new episode what's coming up next week this week on the podcast? We have
Eloise Thiessen,
nurse practitioner.
Yes.
Eloise Thiessen.
Yeah.
Who is a major cannabis nurse. Matter of fact, she's the head of the cannabis nurses.
The American Cannabis Nurses Association.
That's right. And is doing her own study as well.
Yeah, we're going to post a meme about that tonight or tomorrow.
Or tomorrow, maybe.
Yeah. Well, we got to
soon.
We got to send it to her, but
yes,
we'll be posting it tomorrow.
We are trying to drop a podcast every Friday morning. So please go subscribe to your local podcast server and whatever that is, app, and look for us. Cannabis Helps Dementia. It's right there. If it's not, let us know. We will get it there. But we're on the big ones, just like Joe Rogan. We haven't made the $100 million deal yet, but we are on Spotify. And we are on iTunes. Yeah. So, and all the other guys too. So, all is well. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Yes,
we love you.
So much.
We do enjoy doing this show every Sunday, especially in this time of craziness with COVID. So, we're going to go out with our old song just because it feels like
we're in that part of the show.
We are in that part of the show. Shout out to my cousin Doug for our theme song for Cannabis Helps Dementia. Do something that's new, and it's perfect for our show, and love hearing it every week on the podcast. And thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you next Sunday.
Yeah.
Free the plant, free the people. Pot for peace.
terrorists keep murdering, the churches keep a-burning, the rapists keep a-raping, and the tide ain't turning. Uncle Sam, for all your power, things get worse every hour. It seems to me your energies are wasted, chasing my friends and me. So hey, Uncle Sam, hey there, Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone. Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone. The terrorists keep terrorizing, our leaders keep a-lying, the haters keep a-hating, and the planet's dying. Uncle Sam, do what's proper, call off your dogs and your helicopters. The problems of society were not caused by my friends and me. So hey, Uncle Sam, hey there, Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone. Uncle Sam, leave us pot smokers alone. How many innocent people gonna be imprisoned? We just peace and love and street pop and brotherhood freaks. A touch of Mother Nature never made nobody violent, never made nobody hate, nobody will break nobody's peace. Since we've never been shown to be harmful, don't you tell me no lies with your caffeine, codeine, nicotine eyes. The cannabis man is just recent, just since 1938 to re-legalize it, realize it. You made a big mistake. Hey, Uncle Sam.